Hey there, disaster industry and listeners. Episode number 12 of Disaster Podcaster today. Kind of a low key podcast today. No guests. Just cut a session based off of a couple of stacked phone calls that I've had over, I would say, probably the last 2 or 3 weeks. I have these calls all the time that are in this theme, but it seems like it's becoming more and more of an issue, and I want to just kind of break it down a little bit. And of course, I'm going to be wanting some feedback from you guys to let me know where you stand on this topic. But the video version of this is available on YouTube. We have a playlist called Disaster Podcaster. You can check them all out. Today, I'm just kind of feeling black and white. I'm just kind of feeling low-key in the zone. So if you're watching this video, it's going to be in black and white. No other reason other than it just kind of matches my mood. It's going to put me in the mode and the vibe. I'd like to give a shout out to our newest students, clients, partners that have joined in with ROS, Restoration Operating System. In the last couple of weeks, we've been really focused on the messaging and branding there, and the first phase, which is the structure of structuring your company to start serving you, get alignment and clarity, and really just make it much easier to operate. Those new members that we have, as well as some other ones that have been doing it for a while, they came back for a refresher. Just a lot of people putting in a lot of hard work this week, and I want to give a shout out to those that are possibly going to watch and put time in to consume this podcast. What I want to talk about today is the increasing urge and overwhelm of adding more tech to our companies. When I say tech, I mean specifically in this conversation, applications, programs, additional processes, websites, tools that are making the work that we do harder and harder and harder. And I say harder, it feels like it's doing, it probably is. It probably feels like it's doing a lot of things to eliminate some labor that goes into doing the things that these softwares replace. But what really the issue is, a couple of things. I want to break it down. I think what I'd like to talk about is the first issue is we're overwhelming those that ourselves and others that we're trying to train into habits and SOPs and processes, because we have this quite a complicated stack of things that have to get done. Tell me if this sounds like you. You have a CRM. You obviously have QuickBooks that you invoice out of. You probably have Xactimate. You have a photo taking app, possibly. I'm actually wearing Company Cam shirt today. Didn't even plan that. Company Cam might be in your arsenal. Encircle, great program. You might have Magic Plan that does a sketch. You've got some kind of apps on your phone. You've got a psychometry app. You just have all these different things. You have a note-taking app. Who knows what all. You have Google Drive that you might store some documents in. It becomes what I call Frankenstein. You're like bolting all these pieces in. They need to be done if you listen and you feel like you're listening to what the industry has started to lay back on top of us, or allow to be laid on top, which laid on top by the insurance industry. We are currently adding so many layers and levels of additional administrative efforts to do the same thing that we've always done without it. It's not like we've changed how we dry buildings generally. It's not like we're really changing the equipment that we use. We still use LGR type dehumidifiers, and we still use some of the basic chemicals for fires and some of the same tools for demo. It's not like any of that has really changed. I think it's improved. We've become more efficient. The equipment has probably improved and gotten better, more for your money, et cetera. But we're still called to do a job by a consumer, a homeowner, a customer. We don't work for the insurance company. They're involved. They're in the picture. They ultimately, and probably more so in your mind, they are the way that the customer's getting reimbursed. That's not our problem. I talk about that all the time. I'm not going to go deep there. What I want to talk about is we are allowing them, the insurance, TPA, our industry, to convince us that we cannot operate without doing jobs the way we are now. And the conversations I have with people are, what do you think about this app? I think some of them are great. Some of them all are redundant. They do a lot of the same things. It's just more of a user interface thing. It's a perception or a personal preference of how something works. Is it good on tablet? Is it good on phone only? How does it work? There's lots of little variances there. But what I see is a lot of people call and will say, I've developed a process that has too many. I show up and I use this, and I had to jump over to this one and do that. I had to make sure it gets pushed and communicated back to other people in the circle, stakeholders, whether internal or external, blah, blah, blah. This becomes overwhelming, which leads me to the second issue that I think this creates is the training. We cannot do that effectively because we have so many variables that create how we do everything. Because it's so overwhelming. Not everyone learns all that stuff the same way. Some people you employ might not even be comfortable with administrative tasks. It might not be how they operate. They may be more, customer oriented, or they may be more, they want to do the work, but they're not great at writing a report or doing this or doing that or getting into the tech. People get frustrated when something becomes difficult and hard. They resist it. Then they don't do it. And then what you're left with is a team of people who aren't being accountable to do what needs to be done for the job because you have made the system too difficult. You've heard me talk about it before. Joe Polish talks about ELF business: easy, lucrative, and fun. The work that we do is hard. It can be very, very difficult sometimes. It has challenges. But it doesn't need to be hard to do our job. It needs to be relatively easy. Simplify the steps. I talk to lots and lots of restorers, and I think one of the biggest things they always request is, how can I have SOPs for everything? SOPs generally are not difficult to create. They are when you have an incredibly complicated process to break down, because I think what's happening in your head is when you start to break it down, it looks like this is just too many steps. And I have people that realize that. Once an owner gets out into the field and puts themselves in the technician spot and realizes that they've got to do the work, they've got to deploy the equipment, they've got to wipe the walls, talk to the customer, they start to say there's no wonder that we're having a hard time training people, get consistent results, become efficient, profitable, all those things. And then they're not very fired up about doing it. It's real easy to call out for the day, look for another job. These things happen because it's not very fun. I talk to a lot of technicians in companies when I do an on-site with the client or just even hired by a restorer to come out and do it on-site with them. They're not a full-time client. They're just a one-time thing. And I'll have a sit-down with hopefully all the technicians, but at least some of them. And lots of them tell me, I feel like I spend as much time documenting the job as I do doing the work, talking to the customer, setting the expectation, onboarding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We are doing the work of the insurance company. They used to do all these things. They would have an adjuster. We don't need a sketch. We don't need 1,000 photographs. We don't need that stuff. All we need to do is what the customer needs to understand what's going to happen, what's happening next, what changes have occurred, where we are with the price and the cost that they're ultimately responsible for. But we have had all of these other components of the job flow that have been kicked over to us because the carriers don't come out anymore and they have TPAs. And then, of course, it's really, really funny is that when we're finished and you do put together a great documentation package and what I call a mitigation checklist, send that all over to the consumer, the customer, and then eventually to the carrier. either the carrier or some TPA calls back asking you 1,000 questions that are right there, right in the documentation you sent, or they're saying they don't pay for this or that. That's a whole different thing. And this all stacks and compounds the frustration. We did all the work. We added steps to our process to pretend that we're doing something to gain favor with a carrier, because they told us you don't get paid if you don't do these things. You're not going to get paid if you don't do our job for us, because they used to not require all that they do. Now, the argument can be made on the other side of this, and I really encourage people to give me feedback, because I'm approaching this from my view. I've also been doing this much longer. Someone brand new coming into the industry, this looks like the standard. Speaking of standard, the IICRC S500, 520, they say that you should document the work you do, but it does not say you should add 20% of overhead to your company. That's just, by the way, seldom billable unless you're doing it right. You're absorbing overhead, which is cutting into your profit margin just to save the insurance more money. These are the complexities, and this is the conversations. I've had several very, very smart and bright restorers, usually the younger professionals, will call and say, I'm developing my own software. I've got developers, maybe overseas, here. I found a better way to do it. I'm using too many, and this was this week. The gentleman said, I'm using too many other things that there should be something that does all of them. And I would agree with that, but there's not. And I'm just creating my own. Well, my specific opinion, because that's what he called to ask for, was that's an awful idea, because I don't think anyone realizes the cost and the money and the cash and the time that it takes to go down that avenue. I know a lot of people in the developer space. I know a lot of people who have started restoration-oriented softwares and other industries, and it's a money suck. It's a vacuum plugged up to a bank that's always going to need money. Things change. The developers move around. The App Store or Apple or Google or all the other APIs, other companies that you're trying to collaborate with, shift, move, changes all the time. The code changes. I'm not an expert software developer, but I am colleagues with a lot of people that probably would say, if you see somebody trying to come in and start their own app, they're probably going to be losing a lot of money. The other side of that is there are a lot of programs in our industry, and they all have different little things. Some of them are better at the documentation of the drying. Some of them are better at the compliance steps. Some of them even have estimating and invoices integrated in. Some are dispatchers. Some of them don't do all of those things. I would have to urge you to take a really, really hard look at your business model and ask yourself start minimally. What's the minimum things that I need to do to take a customer from a new call to what they need, to doing the work, to doing some general cover your ass liability covering documentation, preparing an invoice and submitting it back to the customer to get paid, and then giving them some things that helps them get reimbursed. Because you don't want to leave a customer with just an invoice with no moisture maps, no photographs, no notes. I want to remind you that insurance companies will call you. They've gotten the dry logs, but many of them don't even know what they mean. What do the pictures tell them? Why do they need so many pictures? You need to prove that you did demolition on this. You need to prove with the photograph that you had a Tyvek suits and your team was in PPE. You need to prove that you had a dumpster and it was full. Here's the truth. You've heard me say this on this podcast before. I don't need to prove to anyone that I did all that. I'm not a liar. I'm an ethical, professional, well-recommended, well-reviewed long-term, profitable part of my community. When I had my restoration company, we do good work. I understand that there are people in this industry that lie and cheat and are crooks. Every industry has that. The world has that. But you do not put that on other people that don't. All girlfriends and boyfriends of your past relationships that were crazy, that doesn't come into your new relationship. You don't blame the new partner you have in life or in your business on the failures of the last one. You wouldn't want that done to you. We're not liars. Now, if you work for a TPA or a program and doing work in some kind of agreement, you've got to go by the guidelines of that agreement. There's no question there. This conversation is different. You're required to use Mika or PSA or whatever tools they recommend. That's it. You can't really say much about that. Doesn't change the fact that you're probably not making the margins you want to. Doesn't change the fact that it's probably not frustrating. Doesn't change the fact that you're probably having a hard time creating a consistency of these things. Because ultimately, if you're the owner of your company, or if you're a manager of a restoration company, you have more important things you need to be doing. You're solving problems that are caused by an unmitigated source issue. You should be solving that issue deeper instead of just the symptoms, putting the Band-Aids instead of covering and getting the bullet hole figured out. The more you have this daily, every phone call, you've got to go handle this, your text turnover, they don't do this, the admins call, they don't have this. It's because you have this overwhelming amount of compliance features that you've added that aren't necessarily needed. Now, listen, I know a lot of incredible master restorers with CR, WLS, and they feel, because they're geared that way, they love the data, the science, to document. It's almost a flex. I'm a great restorer because my paperwork is sharp. That does not mean that you shouldn't be getting paid. There are people currently in this industry that turn in and submit and do the minimal or much, much less than some others are doing. Moisture mapping, yes. Daily readings for drying logs, yes. It's a standard. Pictures from some generalized pictures, of course. Cover your ass liability of pre-existing conditions, broken items, this, that, 100%. Anything that might be of special note for the future, take that a picture. Do you need 500? No. Do you need all these extra things? No. You want to do them, and you've been convinced that you have to. This might just be a tangent that I'm on, but I talk to a lot of people that agree that when you hand in moisture maps to someone or dry logs, do you know they could probably be from another project, another house, relabel it, and no one's going to know? I certainly don't think you need to do that, but the idea that that's how easy that is to do, it kind of means it's all kind of BS. You need to do what you need to do, the right thing. I'm 1,000% in fan of that. You need to do the right thing, but you don't need to do all the things. So I will close down this part of the podcast and say, look at what you must do to get paid. Now, if you're not getting paid by the carrier because you don't do all the things for their job, figure that out. Learn how to have your voice and stand up for your company, yourself, your employees. Onboard your customer the right way with our onboarding course. Tell them, I do a phenomenal job. We are the premier disaster recovery, restoration, property damage recovery company in our market, our region, whatever's true. But we work for you, and we don't add a lot of other things for other people outside of our contractual agreement just to make their job easier. They need to show up and do those things. If the carrier needs a sketch measured and scalable, because you're doing Matterport. At one point, Matterport cameras were $4,000. You're paying for every single one. Now, you can make argument that Matterport helps with a sketch and stuff like that. There might be some efficiencies in there, and if you figured out the ROI on that, great. But if you're not doing recon, Just a couple of pictures. We don't need every square inch in 4K that's frozen in time forever. We haven't always done those. I'm old school. That's fine. You're going to say, Clark, you're just a Gen Xer and blah, blah. You're from a different era. That's not how it is today. It's not that way today because everyone keeps saying that we've got to morph to what someone else who wants to profit more than we do tells us we need to do. It's Stockholm Syndrome. That is when a captor, a kidnapping or a cult captor, sympathizes with their captive who's holding them captive. It's an illness, and it's a very extreme way for me to put it, but I think it sends the message, and I really, really want people to. I'm not here to tell you to give the middle finger to the insurance company. That's never what I'm here to do. I'm here to say be a professional. Build a company that does what it needs to do at the highest level to get the result that's needed. Don't add extra things. Be efficient, because efficiency equals profit. That profit can go back to help you make more profit and money, which you can then in turn convert into things like better pay for your employees, training opportunities, cash flow that's improved, not being concerned with trying to find any job because you have no money in the bank and you have receivable issues. You have to go and take every job, even the ones that are not profitable, and they're certainly not fun or easy to do and not in the best lane of what your company does. But when you have profit, when you actually build up money in the bank, by the way, this is what we teach in ROS. This happens. This is not a sales pitch. This is not a Fugazi. This is how companies grow. You've seen them. You probably look at somebody and say, man, they've got their shit put together because they think like this. They do this. They are a business that does restoration for a service. They're not labeled as restorers only and say, we have to do this, we have to do that. Profits, growth, strategy, start taking on the kind of customers you want to do, the kind of work you want to do, say no to more things, grow, focus on the stuff, improving, bring in a trainer one day that's an incredible teacher, takes the training off your hand, market better, spend more for digital marketing and grow your brand, get more reviews, all of the things. Start a podcast, have an open house, and have your area able to look like the premier place for people coming out of a trade school that don't want to go to college, somebody that's 29, 32 years old that's been working for Home Depot for a while that just wants an opportunity to make better money. You're that better opportunity. You need to be able to market to that. These are all the things that profitable, good, strong, elite companies do. And they don't spend money, time, and frustration on things that are not serving their final goal. Sorry, this is how I see it. And I beg you to give me alternatives and give me challenges. We won't get paid. Our receivables are going to be too high. Insurance won't pay us. Insurance isn't going to pay you no matter how many pictures you take. They're still going to have a hard time. They're still going to delay. They're still going to try to offer some lowball number with somewhere between 20 and 50% less than what you've invoiced. By the way, not estimated, invoiced. Even with you doing all these things for them, they're still doing that to you. What does that tell you? Your customer needs to be telling the insurance company, I need to be reimbursed so I can pay this contractor. Or I've paid the contractor their invoice through, credit card or through their financing program. I need to get paid back as per our policy and our agreement said I would, so that I can remove that debt and that risk to me. This is the homeowner speaking, or business owner. We're not part of that conversation. You don't have to be. If this sounds too good to be true, then you're watching and listening to too many of the wrong people, because this is how great restoration companies are built and beginning to go back to. We're remembering how far away from where we used to be we've become. And I enjoy watching it because it's freedom. It's independence. I start seeing owners take their vacations and having the best time ever and literally enjoying what they do instead of all this other stuff. And marketing has become very, very hard. Marketing is not hard for companies that have 450 reviews. Marketing is not hard for companies that have other past customers and people in the community recommend you to other people and your phone rings that way. That's the pinnacle. So my point today was I want you to take a good, hard look at specifically at all of the things that it takes for you to complete a job, whether that's a fire, water, mold, bio, whatever. Make that start with the mind map. I use XMind. It's XMIND. Find that program. Find something like it. Lucid Chart. There's lots of them. Origami or something like that. They are tools for you to plan a journey and a pathway and the processes for that. Start with the minimal and then look and say, do we need to add more to it? Convince yourself. Use your team. Start with doing it. Simplify it. Your team will appreciate it. Your customer will appreciate it. They don't want complicated. They want simple. Don't bring them into your drama. Don't bring them into what their insurance company has done to our industry. That's not their problem. They just want to know that you're the right person to call for all this stuff. But you also can't take on their burden. They owe you for the work that you're doing, and they need to contact their insurance company to do it. So it's a couple of different things there, but I'm going to shorten it up here, wrap it up, tell you that I would really, really, really like you to think about reaching out to us and applying to see if ROS is a fit for you. I'm super engaged with this. I've designed it because it solves all these problems that I talk about. ROS is our coaching program. You're going to get our full-blown building a business with intention that creates freedom, makes you the CEO, and everybody in it generally will love working there and know what they're supposed to do and have alignment. Restoration Operating System. I invite you to apply. Links down below if you want. If you're curious, I'm not taking your credit card from you applying. Apply. Let's see if it's a fit. Get on a call with me. I'll show it to you. You can give me thumbs up, thumbs down, see what it's about. But don't not do something. If you are stuck in your business and it's not doing what you want it to do and you've been trying for a while, I would ask you, what are you waiting for? What's supposed to happen between now and then? Now, it takes a long time to build a great business, but if you can speed that up, if you can collapse time and find someone who has many, many, many of the answers to help you do it quicker, I think that's kind of what the idea of business is all about. Speed it up. I would really like to encourage you to check it out. We're having a ball. The people that are in it, Corey, CJ, lots of people that are in it, Nick, they're like, why has our industry not had this before? They kind of have. There have been some programs and lots of consultants and stuff, but everybody wants to do it their own way and go start their own software. It's okay to be yourself, but let's go with the proven processes to help you build a company, and then you can modify as you go and add your little quirks and your own little ways to do stuff. But you first need a business that's fundamentally printing money so that you can grow and you have money in the bank and you're not starving with cash flow and really concerned about where the next job is going to come from, waiting on a storm, what happens if we have a cold year, blah, blah, blah. But really, really, really consider on I don't like changing software, but find the system or a system with as few pieces as possible that can do what you need to do, but not more. And I think that might change your business and allows you to focus on some bigger and better things, because it really is occupying and it's causing paralysis analysis because you can't move along and further and past it. That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I am looking for you to make comments either in the podcast side, the audio, or if you're on YouTube, drop a comment or just reach out to us at restorationadvisors.com. However you want to do it. It's Clark at restorationadvisors.com. And, if you want to have a part 2 of this and you want to challenge me on some of these things, especially, by the way, let me end with this. I know a lot of you that have software companies and you're great people and you have great products. And I think that standalone, there's some garbage out there, but most of it's good. And I'm not saying your stuff is junk. I'm just saying that the application of how the users, the end user, the restorer, is accumulating those and not using everything to its full advantage because they want it to do something a little different because it's their personalized thing. It's causing your software is causing this stuff to be harmful to other people. It's not intentional. And I know most of you would say, I would like mine to be as much of everything that we can do. But it's just not, it takes a long time. It takes money. And there's just way too many variables. Some people just like to do things differently. You as restorers, you need to find what works for you, put together your own little system, and just go and make a blueprint and do it and train, repeat, make people do it, hold them accountable, and you'll start to see an improvement. So check us out, ROS. We have 3 phases: structure, systems, and scale. It's simple, but it's not easy, and it will challenge a lot of what you do. But we really would love to have our members have said we'd like to have a few more people in here, a few different kinds of people. Our clients in Hawaii love it, and they live on Hawaii time, and this is working for them. So if you want to check it out, do so. If you like the podcast, I appreciate it. Share it with someone. I'm trying to stay consistent and keep putting these things out. Sometimes it's just busy, just really busy trying to do it. I'm going to try to find some more guests pretty soon. I think people like when we have other people on there. So if you want to be a guest yourself, let's set it up. I don't care who you are. You don't have to be big and famous and huge company. You can be small. If you got something cool to say and to talk about, I can't wait. Let's do it. Reach out to me. You can get on the podcast. We'll have some fun with it. All right. Take care. See you next time.